Buster Olney thinks of Buffalo Wild Wings with Armin and Levac on 104.5 The Team every Thursday at 5:15. Buster is live at 6:30. It is the best of Buster. And Buster, Jim Leyritz, former Yankees catcher, joined us yesterday. He spent time with A-Rod over the last week, both at the golf tournament and Old Timers Day. He had this to say.
It's the first time that I actually talked to him just briefly and said, "How's it going?" And he said, "Jimmy, I made a lot of mistakes." And I didn't ask him for that. He just said it. And I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think it's an act this time. I think he's really been humbled by this entire situation.
Buster, Jim says we should believe A-Rod. Is he a different person, or is he still full of crap?
I don't think there's any question that he's different when you talk to him. I mean, I noticed it right from the beginning of spring training, and every time I see him, it's reinforced with different things that he says, and it's reinforced by, I think, by how he's handling things. Settling the whole issue relatively quietly of the bonus money and giving that money to charity, doing that type of thing. But on the whole issue of whether or not we believe him or don't believe him, you know what? I'm just going to go right in the middle. I'm going to go totally neutral. When Alex says things, and if he makes any references to, cleaning up or anything like that, I'm just going to nod my head and go, okay, and I'm not going to pass judgment because you know what? I don't know what to believe. Yeah. Only Alex knows whether or not he's doing something. And I hear that question from people around baseball when he's come back and played a lot better than everybody expected. Is he doing something? Is something going on? And I always tell him, I assume nothing, one way or the other.
He's Buster Olney thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings. Part of the reason why A-Rod didn't make the All-Star team, should the Yankees be at fault for that because of the way that they have not pubbed him, really, the first half of the season specifically?
No, I don't think so at all. And look, for whatever reason, and it was different than when I was a kid, when the Yankees always did really well in the All-Star voting. They don't always necessarily do as well now. It's the small markets which seem to, the ones that are really emotionally invested. And the Royals are, right near the top of that. They seem to get a lot of attention, and I think Alex is. Probably all of his deeds that he stacked up where he lied repeatedly about PDUs cost him, I'm sure, in fan voting, and I know for a fact it cost him in player voting because I talked to players, and their attitude was in the voting, in the ballots that they were given was, I'm not going to support that guy. The heck with that guy. I think we got a feel for that a couple of years ago when Ryan Dempster threw at him on purpose because there was a lot of anger among the players about how Alex handled things. But is that the reason why he wasn't on the All-Star team? No. The reason why was there were two candidates who were better than him. And as they say, he's had a terrific year. But Nelson Cruz was a perfectly reasonable pick by the fans given his strong start for the Mariners. And the second best option on the board at DH is Prince Fielder, hitting close to 350, having a big bounce back year, leading that lineup. And Alex has been good, but he hasn't been as good as Prince Fielder. So I actually was surprised by how many people were suggesting there was a snub or, conspiracy theories. They were just better candidates this year.
Buster Olney thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings with Armin and Levac on 104.5 The Team. Hey, Buster, because Alex Gordon got hurt yesterday of the Royals, it has been announced that Brett Gardner is going to be in the outfield for the All-Star game. Should he be?
He should be. When I turned in my All-Star team for ESPN.com last week, I had him as a guy who's on the team. He's played well enough to be on the team for sure, and he's become the leader of the team. And in some respects, in my mind, he's been one of the best leaders they've had in the last 15, 20 years.
Wow. It's funny, Buster, because we don't give him credit for that.
Well, and that's probably because we don't know him in that way, because he's always been very understated, doesn't call attention to himself. It didn't surprise me at all this week when Gardner said he was not going to campaign for himself with the All-Star, the final vote thing. I mean, that's just his personality. But I think that you can rest assured, based on every experience that I know and talking with people around the team, if there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, Brett Gardner always does things the right way, whether it's the way he plays or how he handles situations in the clubhouse and how he treats people. And I've never had any experience contrary to that, never heard any story contrary to that. He's been terrific.
Buster, who was the biggest snub in all of baseball for the All-Star game?
I wrote the other day, I hate the word snub, because like last weekend I was around the Giants because we had two of the Nationals-Giants broadcasts, and And I spent a lot of time talking with Bruce Bochy, the manager of the National League team, and he was really mentally wrangling with this whole thing. You know, and he was talking about, well, if I take this guy, then I'm not going to be able to take that guy, and if I go this way, then I can't go that way. And so the idea that anyone was snubbed, knowing how much thought that the managers put into this, I don't think it's the right word. Let's say that, who were the worst omissions? I think Clayton Kershaw should be on the National League team. He is an all-star. He's baseball royalty. And yes, he's not having as good a year this year as he's had in the last couple of years, but he's still having a really good statistical year. Going into play on Tuesday, he was tied for the Major League lead in strikeouts. He was sixth among all pitchers in wins above replacement. And there's a great stat which reduces the impact on defense and assesses pitching performance. And of all the pitchers in baseball, he ranked first in FIP. And so I think he's been good enough, and I think he's one of those guys, you want him at the All-Star game because he's been so good for baseball.
Buster Olney thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings with Armin and Levac. Levac's out today. Buster, this is the last time we'll talk to you before the All-Star game next week. On Monday night, we're going to have the Home Run Derby right here on ESPN Radio. Do you like the new format with the time limit and the bracket?
I do. I fret that the time limit, the structure they put in to keep it more streamlined is going to surprise them, because I know the standard for building up extra time is to hit a 420-foot home run. It seems like all the home runs are at least 420 feet in the Derby. I like the head-to-head matchups. I wish they did the captains, especially this year, because I know Todd Frazier, New Jersey native, and sort of the de facto host of this year's event because it's in Cincinnati. He would have had a lot of fun with that. But I'm looking forward to it, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Buster Olney thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings. Ellsbury and Miller both back for the Yankees. Should we instantly feel better about this ball club now?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Ellsbury, as you know, he was having an unbelievable year, and he was headed to the All-Star game before he got hurt, and the same thing with Andrew Miller. I am going to be curious to sort of watch and see how Miller and Betances are handled going forward, because if you look at the use patterns for both these guys, you can make an argument that they were leaned on way too heavy by the coaching staff, and at some point, coaching staff has to get comfortable with other guys and use other guys and rely on other guys in a way that they didn't early in the year. I was looking at it the other day after Betances had that blown save. He was on a pace at that point of 74 appearances in 85 innings, which is just unbelievable. And, I heard from people in Baltimore after Andrew left there, look, he's a tremendous pitcher, but you definitely have to work carefully around his ability to pitch on back-to-back days, and that's why watching him throw 30 pitches in that game last night kind of made me cringe a little bit as he came off the DL.
Buster Olney with Armin and Levac, 104.5 The Team. Buster, do the Yankees make a trade before the July 31st deadline?
Yeah, I think they'll do something, but here's the funny thing about it. It's not exactly clear, besides possibly trying to add a right-handed hitter for second base, or a guy like Ben Zobrist, a switch hitter for that position, upgrade over Stephen Drew. It's not exactly clear that they necessarily have some big hole. I mean, their rotation right now actually has a surplus to the point that they had to move Adam Warren into a different role. And the big question I think everybody had about this team coming into the year was the injuries and the problems with aging that they have with their everyday lineup. And it really hasn't been the case. Alex Rodriguez has generally been able to stay on the field, and so has Mark Teixeira. Some other guys might be a little banged up, but generally speaking, they don't really have a big hole to address. Now, you would assume, as happens with all teams, that, over the last 3 weeks going up the trade deadline, that something will happen, and it probably will develop a hole. And I do think they're going to make some additions, because they usually like to sit back and wait until the last 24 hours. And they're, when teams are just looking to move money, the Yankees are the perfect team to say, hey, we won't give you anything, but we'll take that contract. Go ahead and give us that guy like Martin Prado. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did something like that.
So we're almost to the halfway point. How confident are you now in your preseason pick of the Yankees being the wild card team?
I'm more confident than I was before the season started. I think it's a good team, and I think it's has a chance to actually get better. And I was talking with one of the people from the Yankees yesterday, and I said, you guys thought you had something good going, and now that you're sitting in first place and you're, 60% of the way through the season, you can feel even better about it. You can feel good about reinvesting in it when you're talking about making a trade before the deadline. And I think, as I say, I think they'll do that.
Wow, we're pulling for that, definitely. Pinstripe Pants isn't here today, but I'm sure he's listening and pumping his fist right now, so don't you worry about that. Buster Olney, thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings. What about the Mets, Buster? This first half of the season for them, did it go as expected?
Oh, boy. Well, yes and no. I mean, we knew coming into spring training that they had great pitching, and we are seeing a full manifestation of that. Just to watch the guys that are running out there and the power arms, I mean, my goodness. Day after day after day to see the development of DeGrom, and I know Matt Harvey's had some ups and downs with his command, but just pure stuff-wise, they and the Cleveland Indians are the class of baseball. We did wonder about whether or not they're going to be able to stay healthy and how effective their lineup would be, and those questions still linger. And we still wonder where the heck is the commitment from ownership to make this team better during the year. The home run they hit on Wednesday, Eric Campbell's home run, snapping a streak of 416 plate appearances without a home run. That's unbelievable. And they, at some point, are going to need an upgrade. And I keep asking around other teams, have you heard from the Mets? What are the Mets saying? And, are you getting any indication from the Mets? And all I get back is, we haven't heard that they're ready to do something significant. And my question is, why not? One of the ideas I wrote on my column the other day was, why don't you call around, if you don't want to affect this year's pitching staff, Zach Wheeler's on the disabled list after having Tommy John surgery. He certainly is someone that would have some value, discounted for sure to a certain degree, but because of what a high-end ceiling he has, that some other team would be willing to give up some, pretty good hitter for him. Why not call around and see what you can get? But based on my conversations, it doesn't sound like that the Mets are making aggressive calls right now.
Are the Mets one of the most non-active, I'll call it, ownership groups in all of baseball?
Well, I think given the circumstance, I think you can make an argument that they're there. And it'd be hard to really quantify something like that. But,
sure.
The Toronto Blue Jays, we know, have an opportunity to make the playoffs for the first time since '93, and they're going crazy, right? Last year, the Baltimore Orioles, and I say going crazy, the Blue Jays are making a ton of calls. They're looking to upgrade. Last year, the Baltimore Orioles thought that they had possibly a championship team, and they overpaid to get Andrew Miller because they were going for it. I could cite you 3-4 other examples of teams in recent years where the team said, you know what, we're going to add. I mean, the Mets got Zach Wheeler when the Giants decided we're going to try to win again, and they traded for Carlos Beltran. It didn't work out, but at least they went for it. We don't have any indication yet that that the Mets actually are in that mindset of, hey, we got a great pitching staff. If we just happen to get to the postseason, we'd be a team that everybody would fear. No, as far as we know, they're still laying back.
Buster's blog at ESPN.com is a must-read every single day. It's worth it to become an insider. And, Buster, have fun this weekend and at the All-Star Game. It's funny with the All-Star Game, you can't help but think about the game and one of the biggest headlines being off the field with Pete Rose in Cincinnati.
Yeah, you're right. And, we're all going to be watching him. We're all going to be talking about him and what might happen there. But I think baseball smartly, Rob Manfred smartly decided he was going to wait until after the All-Star Game to deal with this because, most people I speak to fully expect that he's not going to be reinstated. And why bring that conversation into the All-Star Game?
Yeah, absolutely. Buster Olney, thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings. Buster, enjoyed it, man. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Armin.